Hello class, welcome to our lesson today. We're going to be talking about adjacent and vertical angles. Again, just like the last lesson, go into a little bit more detail with that. Before we get into that too far, let's go ahead and look at our warm-up activity. This is dealing with common denominators and adding and subtracting fractions. Remember, when you add and subtract, you have to make sure you have a common denominator. So instead of 5 and 3 here, I need to make them both 15. I get a negative 12 and a plus 10. Remember, negative 12 plus 10, that's a negative 2, and you get negative 2/15 as your answer. For the second one, you could make things improper if you want, so don't think that that's a bad idea. It might take a little bit longer, but you could do that. You could also make things into mixed numbers and just find a common denominator and just add the pieces together. When I do that, the key is when I get the answer, I get 5 and 29 over 28. However, we need to make that one more in the whole because 29 is larger than 28, so we take 28 28s and make it another whole, which would make it 6 and 1/28. And don't forget it's negative here because you have a negative number minus another number, or a negative number plus another negative number if you do keep change. Okay, we talked about this idea of adjacent yesterday for our last lesson. When you're dealing with adjacent, remember they have to share a common side and have the same vertex. So 1 and 2 are adjacent, 1 and 4 are adjacent, but 2 and 4 are not considered to be adjacent angles. So definition-wise, you want to make sure you know that adjacents share a side and have a common vertex. Vertical angles are angles that are opposite of one another formed by intersections of lines. So if you look here, angle 1 and 3 are vertical to each other. And notice it has the one kind of hook to it or one kind of curvature. That means they're the same or congruent angles. And then 2 and 4, you'll notice have two of them. The reason there's two of them there, if you've never seen that before, is to show that those are different angles than the other two. So the one curve versus 2 curve just means those two pieces would be the same, whereas the other two, 2 and 4, are also the same as each other. Okay, in this diagram here, name a pair of adjacent. I just picked FBA right here, and then FBE. So essentially what I did is I went F to B and then just went one way versus the other, and that's how I got my answer there. For vertical angles, the one you cannot use is BE because that is just a ray. It doesn't go all the way through. So I picked angle ABC, so that's this angle right here, and angle FBD, because notice those two things are on opposite sides of the two intersecting lines. What you have to think about is kind of erasing the ray BE from it, and then you have two intersecting lines that would be able to give you the pair of adjacent and vertical angles. Okay, so here's two examples. I'll just focus on this first one. I would encourage you on the second one to look at it a little closer yourself. For this first one, adjacent, they just need to share a side. Okay, so VWX and VWZ, they just go opposite directions of each other. They share a vertex though. These are crossing lines, and so this angle right over here on the left and right would be vertical, or above and below. Remember, you got to use 3 points, okay, when you're naming these angles, unless they tell you that this is angle 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of in the angle area. Otherwise, you're going to have to use 3 points, and remember, the vertex has to be in the middle to be able to say that. The other thing that I've noticed students struggle with is when it says name a pair of adjacent angles, there's 2 angles given to you as an answer, because that makes the pair. So that's something you want to think about as you're dealing with some of those scenarios. Next questions are just algebra questions. Say whether they're adjacent or vertical. So if you look at these 2 angles, they're vertical, okay, because they're across from another like that. And vertical angles are congruent, and you can set them equal to each other. So x equals 70. These 2 angles here are adjacent because they're next to each other and share this common side and vertex. There's 2 ways you could find this. One is you could take 90 minus this 31, see what's left. Okay, that'd be 59, and set x plus 4 equal to 59. From there, it's a one-step equation. Your other option is you know that these 2 things, because this is a right angle, have to add to 90. And you could just say, okay, well, x plus 4 plus 31 equals 90. You combine these 2 pieces together. 4 plus the 31 is 35. And then subtract 35 on both sides to get x equals 55. Either way, you should get the same answer. Drawing a pair of vertical lines with one having a measure of 40. The easiest way is to just draw this horizontal and then put a dot somewhere for the vertex and use your protractor and measure 40 degrees. Once you measure this side here to be 40 degrees, essentially just expand it, extend the line going the other direction, which would mean this angle in the bottom left would also be 40. So what you want to start with is just a horizontal line, put a vertex, draw the angle with your protractor. Okay, you could draw it the other way as well, but you got to make sure the angle makes sense with 40 degrees as you're dealing with that scenario. And that would be 2 angles that are vertical that have 40-degree measure. Okay, just to review adjacent and vertical, these two angles here are adjacent. They share a side and a vertex. The two of them together, since this is a straight angles, if a right angle is 90, two right angles make a straight angle, and that would be 180. So something to make sure you know is that a straight angle should be 180, so you just add these two pieces up. X plus 132 equals 180. Subtract 132 on both sides, you get x equals 48. Now, obviously, there's other ways to find that answer. I'm going to push the one-step and two-step equation idea because it reinforces ideas that you need to know for your future classes. For vertical, remember vertical angles are congruent to each other, so these two angles are opposite of the crossing lines. So you're going to set those things, x plus 2 equal to 43, subtract 2 on both sides, and you get an answer of x equals 41. Okay, for your questions today, you've got number 5, and then 8 through 24 is all. Those questions go fairly quickly. Make sure you show a little bit on the questions like these ones, where you have to say if it's adjacent or vertical. Don't just write the answer of 41. Don't just write the answer of 48. We're looking for some work shown on those situations. You're going to need a protractor for some of your questions, so you either have your own protractor or there's a PDF of one online, or you've already printed it off and you cut that out. That should help you as you're looking at that. Even if your protractor is a crude measuring tool, it should still have the right idea as you're looking at those situations. Have a good day, everyone.